Chad, how are things?
Living the dream, Drew. Living the dream.
If you guys are new, before we get started, we have different formats of the show. Today, we're actually going to be talking about the news and updates. And if you have not joined us on the trail yet, make sure you guys subscribe, like, and share. Our last episode had over 50 views, and we only have 17 followers. So over half of you guys are not subscribed to the show. Make sure you guys subscribe because you, this our new saying now is me and Chad push the horizon. You guys bring the people, and we're going into this new frontier. We're doubling the frontier, but um,
So are you
today
Lewis or are you Clark?
that's a good question. I like to look at it as like variable. It's like every show is a little bit different.
I got you.
Whether or not I'm Meriwether Lewis or Chad Carotis Clark, doesn't matter. Um, but no, today let's talk about real quick. I want to talk about what you were saying earlier before we jump into the news. But you were talking about your DNA sequencing and take us through that. What would you do with that? What happened?
Yeah, I think really it's an opportunity to leverage AI. So it's just because we always ask these questions: how can we use it? How can we actually use it for actionable things that we will see changes in our daily lives? So my wife got me a DNA test for Christmas, and it takes a couple weeks to come back in. But you swab your mouth, you send it back in, and it sends their analysis on it, but then it also sends like 700, like a huge CSV file, like 740,000 like biomarkers or DNA, whatever they are, right? So I uploaded that big file into Claude, and Claude built me a pretty epic dashboard that it took all of this raw data and everything. It predicted my eye color, my hair color. What I'm going to lose my hair, so that was very upsetting and alarming. Different diseases you're susceptible to or not susceptible to. And it also had like different cognitive things. Like it had, it kind of touched on like IQ and EQ and all this stuff that was just so interesting. And I think from the perspective, especially, kind of if like, I know Drew and I kind of like a little biohacking hobbies here and there. So I was asking about like peptides, like what peptides work the best, and what's going to be effective and not effective. So I think all that to say is you don't just have to use it directly to make money, because I think if your body is performing optimally and you're in sync with it and you're alive, then you're going to have a better chance of making money than if you're dead.
For sure. Health is wealth, for sure. That's what we believe here on the pod, and that's what we believe moving forward. But I think the most important thing here is not just whether it's health or whether it's business. I think the most important thing is that AI can improve any part of your life. So it's like, oh,
Exactly.
I live in the Dolomites and I don't even see people on a regular basis. Why do I need to use AI? Well, like there's things in your life that you either have a hobby for, like this podcast is a hobby. Like now. It's not a hobby. It's in that hobby phase.
It's
But
a budding empire.
budding empire, exactly. Like back in the day, kings would just mess around with wooden swords, and then next thing you know, they're conquering kingdoms. So that's where we are on a pioneer perspective. We've journeyed outside of the city a little bit so far. It's only a matter of time before we meet real obstacles and walk through them. But anyway, the idea here is that AI is going to make everything you care about or that you're a hobby of, it's going to make it better. It's going to make it more in depth. Like with the gene sequencing, whatever, you would have to go to a doctor and ask them specific questions because they're probably not going to do all that stuff. But you would have to
They're
ask them
not.
specific questions and give
Exactly.
you real
That
feedback that like you can use.
and what it does too is I think it democratizes things like um, advanced healthcare and high performance coaching. Because for me to go get genome sequencing done,
Hmm.
whatever all that was, I think it cost us, I don't know, like $199 to like do the swab and send it back in. But like if I went and actually had all these professionally tested, I mean thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. just, to do something like that. So the fact that we have access to data and knowledge like this, and, to your point earlier, I think it's really just going to enhance anything that you do. I mean, you truly have a high performance coach in your pocket. And what do high performing people do? They continue to hire coaches no matter what level they're at, because they're always looking to level up. And I think having the ability to access something that is a therapist, coach, healthcare consultant, longevity expert, whatever you kind of want to coin it. Um, and of course you have to use all the disclaimers like, don't worry, this isn't real. This is only hypothetical for, not healthcare purposes. And ChatGPT, that one's the biggest bitch. I mean, I really think, Drew, I'm going to cancel my ChatGPT subscription. And I know we were talking about that, but too many guardrails.
It just seems so inauthentic, honestly. But for
It
me,
does.
I think one of the most important things for me on this whole subject is the idea that you first of all, let's talk about what were you saying about
High performance coaching.
democratizing. What do you mean specifically about democratizing? What does that mean?
Yeah, so it's making it more accessible, right? Because generally you'd see these quality of life enhancements only accessible to people at a much higher income bracket due to the sheer cost and expense of it, and the fact that most people don't consider this to be, they'd rather pay their rent before they have their genome sequencing done. So the fact that you could now do both is it just it, I think really continues to level the playing field. And it really comes to my whole point of democratizing the economy, because now you could have some kid in Ville who's vibe coding apps on the App Store, and kind of changing the trajectory of his or her life, in doing stuff that wasn't accessible. I mean, we didn't have this 2 years ago.
Like 100% exactly. I think I heard someone say recently they were like 80% only expect to be 80% of the way there on information. So even if I go to a doctor and I say, "Hey, my stomach is hurting, I have a fever, blah blah blah." They're going to be able to give you about 80% of the advice you need. And if it works, then it looks like, oh, it was 100% right. They were 100% correct. But if they're wrong, then it's like, well, we were just playing around with it. We were just guessing and trying different things, whatever. That is what AI can do. AI can get you 80% of the way there. Hey, take a picture of, something like, my eye looks like this, or my finger looks like this, or something like that. And then put in your symptoms, and it gives you, hey, these three things. Does it feel like this? Does it feel like this? Does it feel like this? What's your blood pressure? Blah, blah, blah. And once you have that, then it's like, okay, I'm 80% of the 80% of the way there, and I paid what? Sometimes $0 compared to
Yeah.
driving into the doctor. And again, this is not medical advice. Go to your doctor if you want to do that. Cool. For me, I'm just like, I just put it in the chat or Claude, and I get the answer and I get the information, and then I go and try to get better. Right.
Right. Exactly. And just using those as like the 80% tools, because even taking, the data that you've acquired, like next time I go to my doctor, I'm gonna bring them all my gene stuff and say, this is what we're working with. And we got to look out for cardiovascular health and
Right.
things like that. So it really, I think being able to get out of that, I think it's gonna drastically expand our lifespans, with our generation. And so it's wild times.
Without even being like, because for me, I'm like, without being wildly hyperbolic, I genuinely believe that you're gonna be able to save money, you're gonna be able to save time, you're going to be able to be healthier in a general perspective. Like I heard about the story the other day about a guy who only drinks out of glass cups because he's afraid of plastics, right? But then he drinks a Diet Coke every day at dinner. So for me, I'm like, that's how I think about, normal people. Oh, is this gonna replace my doctor? Well, how often do you go to the doctor? Well, I go to the doctor like twice every year. Okay, but you have someone in your pocket right now that can tell you, hey, these are and exactly what you did. Like you put the information in. This is how many calories I had today. This is how many steps I took. This is how many reps I did in the gym. You put all that information there and it synthesizes it to a point where it's like, okay, this is what you should be expecting over the next 10 months, right? I want to lose
Right.
weight. Okay, this is the calories I took in. Uh, I tracked myself for a whole week. This is how all the stuff that has happened. Where am I going to be by the end of the year? And you'll get 80% there, which is what a doctor would do. So, and that's only an LLM, dude. Like we're only talking about LLMs here. We're not even talking about like agents and OpenClaw and all that stuff. We're not even talking about that. We're talking about on your computer right now or on your phone, ChatGPT, Claude, Google Gemini, whatever you want. Take your information, track your data, get your data in, like what you did, get your finger pricked, and then put it into the LLM and get the data. You don't need to talk to a doctor, about general things.
Now, where does that
Uh,
data go? Not a clue. Absolutely not a clue. It's probably not yours anymore. But oh, what? So you want my D? Like I don't know. I've been arrested enough times to where they already have my DNA.
I have we'll talk off show, but I have the AI agent I was telling you about. They are basically like OpenClaw, but they don't give your like there's safety param like it's safe because it operates inside Microsoft's 365, and so any data you put into it, it doesn't go into any of these LLMs. You can use ChatGPT, but it doesn't report back to OpenAI basically. Anyway, we'll talk about that later, and then also we'll talk about it on the podcast when there's more details. But Notebook LM appears to be ready to go. So let's fire that bad boy up, and let's get into the show. Okay. I have not seen the slideshow yet because it was taking so long to get going, but we are here. So today we're talking about the news. We're talking about the top 5 things that have happened in the last 14 days in the world of AI, and then we're going to try to bring it back down to what does this mean for you guys? Why do you guys who listen to the show care about any of this? We're going to break it down. So it's been the rise of the autonomous empire. We have talked about this. We talked about it on the last episode. We made a whole episode about it with OpenClaw, and at the time it was called ClaudeBot. But the idea here is it's a strategic briefing. This whole thing is a strategic briefing on the shift from passive tools to active agents. We've touched on this before, and now we're going in. We're going deeper. We're driving into the next frontier in this episode. Let's get into it. This isn't supposed to be a tech report. It's just a market shift. This is what we talk about all the time. And so if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. Let me read this first and we'll go into it. We are witnessing the transition from AI as tool to AI as agent. Meta spent $2 billion to put an AI agent inside every ad platform. I showed you this the other day, Chad, about how you can
Mhm.
literally use Manus to run your ads, right? So the question is no longer can AI work with you? It's whether your business is set up to use it. So you're trying to create a business model that allows AI to be a part of your business model, right? The window to get ahead is open but closing. The speed of execution is the new differentiator. What do you have to say about that, Chad?
Yeah, I think all of this. I think we all kind of knew this is the direction it was going, right?
We did.
As
We
things,
did.
fair enough. As it got more sophisticated, you kind of see the writing on the wall, and I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. And of course, what they mean by AI as a tool to AI as agent is, essentially what they're saying is instead of user inputs, user gets output, user inputs, user gets output. It's user input once, agent goes, it figures out what needs to be done and continues to go out and do it. So a lot of times you're using an agent, if you are using an LLM, it has these agentic features that you might not even be aware are running. Like if you see it maybe taking a little bit longer, it's those agents being, going out and deploying. So I don't know. I mean, Drew, I know you saw the writing on the wall too. What do you think this is going to do? Like, where does it go beyond this, right? If they're already agents, what's next?
Well, I think the big thing here, and it says it right here, but the mode of execution is disappearing. We talked about this with Angus on the last episode. Just because you can replace my water heater doesn't make you the best to replace my water heater anymore, because it's not about the execution. It's not about being able to do the thing, especially in the digital world. I'm maybe take back water heater because that's going to be around for a little bit longer. But if you said, "Oh, I can run your ads for you," okay, that's no longer the moat, because people don't need to know how to run ads anymore. They just have Manus do it, right? So the moat is the whole business model with AI integrated into that. It's not, and also I'll say I don't believe that this is like an AI business, right? I don't think that AI business is the future. I think a business that integrates AI is the
Integrates.
future, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly. And
so,
I think that's a core distinction to your point there, that
right.
it's not an AI business because it's it's interesting because it's still not core business, right? Like, let's say you have an agency, you still have an agency, but maybe instead of hiring VAs, you now use, Mantis. So it's kind of like to use my very eloquent phrase, like shit or get off the pot
Hmm.
when it comes to incorporating, stuff like this. And we're seeing it, of course, with agentic coding as well. And, how that's disrupting software engineering. And, just a couple months ago, you had these like lighter models that weren't as good. And now they're getting up there to where, they have like 150 IQs, senior level engineering. And it's kind of like, I don't get you at least 90%, that'll at least get you an MVP and a pretty good one. So just so many constraints are being lifted. And what's interesting, Drew, and kind of where I'm worried about all of this too, is because the mode of execution is, and we're saying moat, MOAT, not mode,
Right.
but the moat of execution with software development. Think about if you wanted to develop a software platform 2 years ago, what did that look like versus I could build you whatever you want in this afternoon. So what does that do for the enterprise value of these multi-billion-dollar companies and all these engineers that make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year? And where does that lead? And is that positive disruption or is that negative disruption? I don't know. I think the eye is in the beholder there.
I think good or bad or like positive or negative is gonna just be a time thing. I think it's just gonna take time to figure out what's this good or what's this bad. I was just reading about the Wright brothers and how they started out as they were bicycle, they they sold bicycles, right? And so they had a bicycle shop, and everyone was against it. They were so anti bicycles. They're like, kids, it's too much. Kids can literally get a mile away in like less than 2 minutes. They're gonna be so far away, and like it's just like it's crazy because they put, people will put um, everything in a box and basically say like this is bad or this is negative for the environment or whatever. It's like, okay, it's still gonna happen though. So like you said, shit or get off the pot. It's like this thing is gonna happen. The old way of doing business, where you have a human figure putting it into a computer and then something coming out, is done, right? Now it might be 5 years before we figure like we see it, but the new model is a human puts it into a brain or an agent, and it consistently learns on inputs, consistently learns on its own inputs, and then you have an output from it. So the execution part is done. So the question is, and this is what we talked to Angus about in the last episode, is distribution is going to be the key. How many people
Mhm.
are using your product? How many people know about you, right? And then the next part was the taste aspect of things. Like, is your product actually good, right? So those are the only two things. It's going to be taste and it's going to be distribution. So, because like exactly what you said is the MVP, we're using software engineers right now, but the MVP is done. Like we could have an MVP out by this afternoon, by this evening,
Right.
right? So
Right.
that's not it. But how many people can I get to use the MVP? How many people? And then once they use it, how quickly can I iterate? And we don't need. Maybe you use a software engineer once it needs to be iterated, and we need these specific iterations to do these specific things,
Mhm.
and it would take less time maybe with a software engineer, cost more money. But the MVP, we don't need to wait 6 months for an MVP to come out anymore.
Exactly.
So, pillar number one, true autonomy. Okay, AI agents are no longer theoretical. We talked about multiple times. We have multiple episodes on it. But the Moltbook event, 1 million AI bots were built, had built their own social network. This is what you're talking about. They banned humans from entering. They created a secret language and started a religion where they worshiped lobsters. One agent physically called a human on their personal phone. Okay, so what does this mean for your business? What does this mean for a
What
small
does this mean for
business?
the world?
Yeah. What does this mean for a small business? Which, for me, I believe small business is what makes up our society. So, small business owners, thank you for what you do. This is why you need to subscribe to the podcast, and this is why you need to be aware of Maltbook. Set it and forget it is finally real. Like, you set up something and you leave it alone, it will get the job done. That's now happening. Agents can now operate independently, communicate with one another, and execute real world triggers. You set it up, and I showed you a video of this, or I showed you a picture of this. One of my neighbors set up Maltbook. I watched it in real time. Crazy. It's nuts. You can text it to do something, and it gets it done. Set up a blog page on my website using these keywords, and it'll text you back. Done. Like we're
Wait,
there.
I'm confused. So is the Molt book? I
Same
thought
thing.
interesting. So was this built with Claude Bot or what is?
No,
God, all
it
these
has nothing to do
names.
with.
We
It has
should have
nothing to do
a
with Claude.
or
But
what do they call Claude Bot now?
oh no, Moltbook. So
Open.
Moltbook, OpenClaw, CloudBot, they're all the same thing. They're all one person created these
Oh,
things.
I didn't know Molt book.
They keep
Okay,
changing their
all
name.
right,
They keep changing their name.
weird.
Oh, so sorry. Moltbook is the social media platform that they created. Okay.
Oh, okay,
Moltbot, OpenClaw, and CloudBot are all the same thing.
gotcha.
So the barrier isn't technology anymore. It's whether your business processes are ready for non-human operators. Are you prepared? Is your business set up in a way that you can actually implement one of these AI agents? Do you have your CRM set up? Do you have your financial set up? Do you have all that stuff set up and your people set up to implement an AI agent in there? If not, I highly recommend you get to that point so that you could implement an AI agent. I don't think it's going to be Moltbot. Just I think that this was a what do you call it? This was just an event that they like threw out
I
there
s-
to see
yeah.
what happens, right? And now Google is going to start doing something. OpenAI is going to start doing something. Like they're just testing the waters right now. The $2 billion bet on automated advertising. This is pillar number two. Okay, embedded intelligence. This is something that I did a whole video on. Was the Manus acquisition, what it is, and I'm gonna do an update on that because now Meta has actually brought it in and it's actually doing stuff now, which we'll discuss briefly here. $2 billion Meta acquired Manus for. Meta acquired Manus, an AI agent that beat OpenAI on benchmarks. Integrated, its integration is plugging directly into Instagram, WhatsApp, and Facebook. They're testing it on ads right now to basically create. It'll be able to create ads and post them for you. Okay, so
which which is crazy, right? Because agencies would be paid millions of dollars to come up with these, brilliant campaigns, write the copy, come up with the creative, test it, run the split test, budget optimization, audience segmentation, retargeting, all of the things that make up, the moving parts that make up, ads. The fact that it's going to be more agentic, this is going to change the game. I really think, and this is going to be the key to distribution for a lot of these smaller MVP products that we were talking about earlier. So I think, whoever jumps on this boat is certainly going to be ahead of the crowd.
what is the business impact? So if you own a business, which most of our listeners do, all 17 of you guys own a business, I'm sure. The business impact for this is that competitors will soon have AI writing, testing, and optimizing thousands of ads on autopilot. This is the new AdWords moment, the closest thing to printing money in media buying. I heard a story about this guy, this influencer who saw an ad like right at the beginning of Facebook, right at the beginning of like, it was like 2002 or whatever, 2003, and he saw an ad pop up on the side of his screen that said like learn this new skill that's going to make you a millionaire, right? And he clicked on it and he learned Google Ads when it was like literally just started. It was like the beta program for Google Ads. And he said that that was a wave that if you had been on, you could have just thrown up like anything onto the and just put a good header and you would have made an unlimited amount of money. We are now in that moment again with AI where there is someone that is creating an agent. Well, Manus is the agent where you can learn this skill where how can I get Manus to run ads for me, be my ads manager, and test all this stuff, keep putting out new product, new creative and all this stuff. How can I do that? And then it's training on the audience. So it's like, this doesn't work. Okay, let's change this. This doesn't work. This change this. That works. Put that. Like it's constantly iterating. And if you can do that over thousands of ads, you're actually just printing money. Like you look for industries with high leverage where if I put $2 in, I can make $2,000 on the other side. This is that moment. Um, the other is gambling and trading. So if you guys want ever to do those, good. So, but yeah, businesses that master directing this tool will outspend everyone else at a fraction of the labor cost. I mean, not much more to say about that. I'm going to do a video on
and
that though.
not only the late, but think about what goes into hiring an agency. I mean, it's such a disaster, right? Because then you got to get the sales pitch, and you get locked into a contract, then you realize they're not performing, then you're dealing with all the shit with them, and going back and forth, and it just the juice is not. Well, I don't want to say the
Worth
juice
the
isn't worth the
squeeze.
squeeze, but it it certainly hasn't been in my experience. And this is going to, I mean, this is TurboTax, right? Like it's taking what was once a very brutal experience talking to an accountant, which I will continue to avoid at as many costs as I can, and instead, platforming it and automating a lot of the parts. This is, I mean, that, but even better.
Right, 100%. Um, Next one. What is pillar three? Pillar three is the desktop operator. Okay, AI moves onto your desktop. Anthropic and Chrome integration. Anthropic, aka Claude, we talk a lot about this on the pod, launched a desktop tool that reads, edits, and creates files. Okay, this could be receipts, messy folders, or raw notes. Google Chrome can now browse the web for you to take actions like booking flights. We're in a world now where you no longer have to go onto Travelocity or Expedia or all this stuff and figure out, oh, here's my calendar and here are five different flights that meet that criteria. And if I, $5 difference here, whatever. No, no. Book me a flight, keep it below $300 on this day, not at this time or before five or no AM flights, whatever. And it'll go and just book it for you. So the business impact about this is the admin tax is dead. The 2 to 3 hours a week wasted on file organization and research is reclaimable. It is effectively installing a part-time assistant on every employee's computer. Like think about what the implications of this is for not a business owner, but for the employees, right? Like the level of output and effectiveness for each employee goes through the roof, and you save money on each employee, even though they're doing the exact same thing.
And of course, I think the bottleneck in this is actually user adaptation. Because there's a lot of interesting data and statistics. I think what was the last one? It was like 74%. I believe. In relative adoption, but then the actual use of it is substantially lower. And then on top of that, actual use is that are like truly advantageous to the business. So I think this is very cool. It will certainly reward those who adopt it. And if you don't, I definitely think that you should be wary.
Yeah, I think what was it? 45% of businesses are adopting AI for their daily
Nope,
like their daily workflows. But
missed the
no,
mark on
but
that one.
but actual adoption is 16.3% is using
So only
generative AI.
16% are like actually using it, which I don't know. I mean, Drew, I think one of my bigger concerns too really is on like the macro of the economy, because it makes you wonder like how long is this sustainable, right? You have all the data centers that are being built. How are those data centers being built? Well, private equity is going out and leveraging, 80 or 90% of these, $100 million data centers. And where are they getting that money from? Well, they're raising it, in AAA credit bonds. And a lot of it are coming from these corporations that they're going to rent out
Right.
to or lease
Right.
to. But it just gets kind of sticky, because if things don't go as planned, then shit can really hit the fan. And those AAA rated bonds can now go to, junk bonds. And that's how we got into, the 2008 crisis. So, people always ask, and especially in real estate, oh, do you think it's like 2008? Do you think it's like 2008? Well, no, but I think it's going to be a catastrophic economic event for sure. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I think, the people that are playing with this very flimsy house of cards, they're making a fortune, doing it.
Yeah.
And, it ultimately will fall. And I think it's gonna be like musical chairs. Like, do you have a seat when the music stops?
Exactly. 100%. And I think one of the big things I just thought about, 100% selfishly, how important this podcast is going to be when everything hits the fan, when shit hits the fan, how important this podcast is going to be as we continue to trek on. People are in the streets begging for jobs and stuff like this, but we'll be trucking along, giving you guys the the breakdown of what's true and what's not true. And also, we'll be here saying like, "Hey guys, we told you like you need to have a business that has AI, and you don't." And now no one wants to be called by a human anymore. Anyway, you're 100% right. I think from a financial perspective, I think we are looking at a house of cards. If you look at 2008, who came out unscathed? The big companies. They always say like too big to fail. They had to have like one person went to jail, and then the rest are just like, okay, let's get rid of all these companies. And the big companies buy the smaller companies that went out of business, and then they, go to the moon. And hopefully our podcast can do the same. Moving on,
Yeah, hopefully we have a seat when the music stops.
there's only one seat and there's only one player. That's all I'm saying. Now, we'll talk about it later, but like Greg Eisenberg, he's he's someone we need to pay attention to as a potential,
Threat.
we, yeah, as a potential, like if there's one seat, we need to make sure we're the only seat, right? So, Greg Eisenberg, if you want to come on the pod, talk AI, come on in. We're happy to
Because we're
talk.
coming for your audience, Greg.
All right, let's talk about the smart moat is gone. Okay, so the collapse of cost is pillar number 4. Open source and Chinese models. Chinese open source models, iQuest Coder, DeepSeek, which I told you the other day, I found out DeepSeek has like 200 million daily users. Let me double check that. But it is interesting to me how like I've never used it. Oh, sorry, 22 million, 22 million. It's the third most used LLM, but they're
I think
beating
that's kind of
GPT
where
five.
like when we talk about like data privacy and stuff, I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like it can go wherever. I feel like the Chinese ones, that's where I get a little apprehensive. I'm not gonna lie. Subconsciously, I'm like, I don't know. I know I had never even heard of iQuest Coder, but DeepSeek obviously, is a big one. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're big in China, right? And China has a lot of people, so it's understandable that they would have a lot of users. Um, But as far as the open source and Chinese models go, DeepSeek cracked the technique, providing 4 times more thinking power for only 7% of the cost. We talked about this on our most viewed episode, calling out what's going to happen in 2026 with our predictions. We called this out that efficiency is going to be the name of the game, and we're no longer in a situation where we can just waste thinking power and waste tokens and energy. We need to be more efficient with our models. And so DeepSeek has done a great job of giving you 4 times more thinking power at 7% at only 7% more cost. Okay, so you're getting 400% at 7% increase of the cost. So what does this mean for your business? All 17 subscribers who are business owners. Enterprise grade AI tools that cost millions 18 months ago are now free to download. That's crazy. If you aren't building custom tools, you are losing to competitors who have a structural cost advantage. You cannot overcome this efficiency gap by working harder. This is not a, we need to put our nose down and grind harder. This is a, we need to figure out how to stop doing all this other stuff and get 4 times more thinking power at only 7% more cost. That's how we need to be thinking now.
Exactly. To your point, and in terms of how we need to be thinking, I think it's much more important to think like an architect instead of a builder. In the rise of all of this, you have to think of the master of the systems. You have to engineer the process, engineer the vision, the idea. Back to your point about taste, but the actual building of it is becoming agentic, and essentially that skill. I don't want to dare I say it. If we had more followers, I'd get a lot more heat for this, but like it's becoming useless, and it continues, especially at the rate. When all the agentic coding started, all the engineers and stuff. It's shit, which it wasn't great, but now I see, I'm reading in the Reddit forums and they are all on it. And they're like, I use it for a vast majority of everything I do. And basically what they're saying is they're just steering the ship. They're the architect. And here's the reality. If you kind of have a vision and you know what you're going for, you could be the architect too.
What is the, there's 2 things I want to say about this, but what is your litmus test on, oh, this is just a fad versus this is the future of technology? Because people ask that all the
With
time.
Yeah, I mean the fact, if people think this is a fad, it's alarming. I think that's kind of a problem that they need to deal with, perhaps psychologically, because the, I mean, the sky's blue, bro. Like this is not going anywhere. Now, what I think is scary and speculative is what we're doing is we're putting dollar figures on it. Oh, we're projecting value, future value. I think that's where it gets a little dicey,
Mm.
right? Because, projecting future value and what it actually yields potentially could be two different things. But in the contrary, it could also not be bad. It could be better than it could go in the inverse and be substantially better than we expected. But I think the idea of this is it's going to eat up everyone who's in the way. But if you're kind of in the, like, if you think about it like a snowball and it's going down a hill, if you're already kind of in the snowball or on the snowball, you better get on it, because soon it's going to be like an iceberg and it's just going to break everything in its way. So I think in terms of it being a fad, absolutely not. I mean, just wrong. If someone thinks it's a fad, they're asking the wrong questions.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because like I look through history and I say, well, what was a fad? Was oil a fad? Were bicycles a fad? Was the calculator a fad? Like all these things that people push back on.
Tractors,
Was
yeah,
paper a fad?
airplanes,
Like
right?
was the cotton gin a fad? Like guys, come on. Like at some point,
Telephone.
yeah, that's a fad. Like it's just a gimmick that I can call the next room over. It's like, but you got to see bigger than that. And I actually had a huge insight when you were saying that. I mean, you said it, but it was a huge insight for me that looking at projections and this is how big the market is and this is the, the price of this company and the price of this company, that's where you get lost. And it's like, no, I
Mhm.
believe AI I is there an AI bubble? Probably. But does that
I
make it a
think there's
fad?
a to your point, I think there's a software bubble. Okay. And you think about it, you have tools like Salesforce, for example. It's a CRM. I don't use Salesforce, but I'd hope it has some cool features for, the market cap of the company. Now, especially with all these enterprise clients that they have, and these enterprise clients are paying, I mean, I'm kind of shooting from the hip here, I have no idea, but hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars a year to use the software. Now, if you could go hire a 17-year-old kid to go build this, and I'm speaking in extremes here, but if you can hire someone to go build whatever you use in Salesforce, your custom CRM, and I'm not, suggesting getting in the CRM business either, because that is a saturated business, but the fact that they can, no longer have to spend that expense on something like Salesforce, but then what the concerning part is the house of cards that the software companies are built on. So you zoom out even more, right? Okay, so what? Software companies lose some market cap, a couple engineers get fired. It doesn't impact me. Well, hold on. Let's see, selling homes, okay? Your clients that work in technology. And then what's that going to do? And it's just all these
Yeah.
cycles. So if you rip a big part of, a high earning, high, economically contributing part of the economy, if you rip it out and destabilize it, I think, I mean, it really is. I think we are due for chaos, especially with the way the market's been. What was like past like 17 years or something. The market's
Yeah.
just been, up and to the right. Um, Good times don't last forever, and neither do bad times. So I think we are due for a restructuring.
Their Salesforce total revenue for 2026 is projected to be 4.1 or 41.45 billion.
Holy shit!
So,
Yeah,
so
and and
what?
and I think
Yeah,
how those companies their strategic moat, right? That's going to be their, no pun intended, but their actual sales force. Those account executives that have developed the relationships with those decision makers at the companies, and their current distribution. Because outside of that, the actual what was so proprietary and difficult to achieve is now wildly accessible.
yeah, yeah. No, all you have at the end of the day is your name at that point. The most important thing to say about this that I want to call a shot is the software companies that just sort of like bolt on AI are going to be gone. Like it's just sort
Hmm.
of like they know they should be doing it, but instead of actually implementing it into their system to make, agents, I mean, that's what it's going to come down to. Do you have an agent inside your CRM? And until they do that, I believe that all these software companies on the fringe that just bolt on AI just to be like just to be up to date, they're gonna be gone. So I'm looking for software companies that are actually creating these agents. I mean, Facebook did it perfectly. Or Meta did it perfectly. They saw Manus, it outperformed OpenAI, and they bought it. That's what needs to happen. Like at the end of the day, we're gonna have like five big, massive companies that are just gonna buy up all the AI companies, and we're gonna be sitting here saying, "Oh, like we thought Salesforce was gonna be this thing, and then they got bought up by Google or whatever." So the next part of this is pillar number 5. Last pillar is production bottleneck. Okay, creative work on autopilot. Adobe and Runway and Gamma. Sorry, Adobe with Runway and Gamma generate and edit AI video directly inside Premiere Pro. Okay, so we talk about a lot of the creative work stuff. Me and you do this all the time, where we generate videos, we generate pictures, and if you guys haven't seen our new thumbnails, fire. And also, I'm probably gonna release this episode first before the Anthropic one because we referenced the last episode so much, and it's news. So when you see the Anthropic one next week, sick thumbnail. I guess I could just send you the thumbnail, but sick thumbnail. Um, But I'm gonna go crazy with the AI thumbnails, and I'll test them against our normal thumbnails, and we'll see what happens. But anyway, I digress. When it comes to creative work, the idea that you no longer need like a two-person internal team to do the creative work that is like so it's niche in a sense. There's like probably a lot of designers, but it's niche to like your company. Like we need it to look like this, and we need the aesthetic to be on point with our
Right.
company logos and brands and all that stuff. We're
Brand
we're, we're,
specific, yeah.
we're we're getting rid of that. And I don't know if you've played with Grok Imagine, but oh my
No,
goodness,
I
dude.
haven't.
Um,
Oh, actually, yes, I have. Yeah, yeah. No, it's pretty crazy, pretty wild. And if it's like this now, I think in 12 months we're going to see, full feature length films,
right.
made by AI that you really could. I would not want to be an actor right now. I mean, that's already a 99% unemployment rate, and the vast majority of people in the SAG union or whatever make. I think it's like. I don't know. It's huge. It's like 90% make less than $20,000 a year, so they don't qualify for health insurance. And I don't know. If you're in school to be an actor right now,
Yeah.
I don't know. Get on TikTok.
Yeah, and let's talk about the business impact for all of our 17 business owners. A two-person internal team can now match the output volume of an external agency. You don't need agencies on the outside anymore when it comes to and I wouldn't say that this is like an enterprise level thing at the moment. I think for small businesses who are like, dang, I can't put out create any creative work. Um, on socials, on our website or anything like that, you can use AI now to do that. The constraint is no longer production; it is your idea and strategy, and I think that goes across the spectrum. I think everything comes down to ideas. Everything comes down to strategy now, and it's only going to be like the best ideas versus the best strategy. I think I saw something, and I'll look it up in a second, but I think it was like 20% of Super Bowl ads were made by AI. So we're getting there. We're getting there. If you are paying for basic production execution that AI can do in 30 seconds, you are donating margin. I like that phrase.
Donating margin. Yes.
So what do you think about that? What do you think are the implications moving forward for small businesses?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see stuff like this, the creative work on autopilot. That's going to go back to, the man is doing the ads and stuff, because I think if you have really good, I mean, well, this isn't profound, but if you have really good creatives, that will convert better than not really good creatives. So I think, as long as you can kind of sprinkle in, some ways to differentiate and be different. And I think it's a great opportunity to be bold and controversial and cutting edge. So I don't know. I think those who throw their hat in the ring will reap a benefit.
So I want to make a quick distinction. It's not necessarily AI generated. There was a couple of AI generated videos, but it's more about AI products. Okay. Um,
Oh, so you're
so
saying the Super Bowl, 20% of the Super Bowl ads were AI products.
right. So they
Gotcha.
were these ads featured AI as their main theme or product. One was Svedka. You guys probably know that because it was horrible, but it was entirely AI generated with futuristic characters. So that was AI generated. Google, they showcased Gemini. They showcased AI for home design and furniture, which is it's a specific competitor to Relto. And I didn't like the call out.
Even though
I called it that.
Relto uses Gemini to wrap it, but some new cool stuff coming out with that as well. But I think kind of to touch on that point, where the opportunity is going to be, it's going to be in these, getting as niche as possible with software products, because I think just these big software companies, I think, are going to have a big value readjustment as their customers come to realize that they are donating margin. And then the opportunity is going to arise to kind of for these indie developer shops to really do something special and niche.
Yeah. Just to round out the commercials, Meta and their Oakley collaboration, the AI smart glasses, Artlist, and Anthropic, they had their back to back. They had their they were going back and forth in their brawl about AI you can trust. So the other thing was over 50% of Super Bowl spots use generative AI in production, like pre-visualization, storyboarding, or post-production. 50% of the Super Bowl ad spots. We are, I honestly think it's a little bit late. Not late, but I think it's like later than I thought. I thought this was going to happen last year as soon as OpenAI came out with ChatGPT. But now it's like, oh, 50% of the spots are using AI. It's, I mean, we got like get on board or get on or get off. Like you're not going to be in a situation in 6 months where it's like, oh yeah, um, now I'm ready. It's like, you know what I mean? So,
Right.
um, so we're on the. Let me get this back up. I lost it. Um, so moving on to our final, just to wrap it up, right? I want to make sure that we put this in a place that's super practical for everyone listening, and making sure that we set the groundwork selfishly for the future when everyone's like, "Whoa, well, why didn't you tell us?" We told you. So the new competitive landscape, the era of tools. Okay, this is the old world, and if you're listening, you know, have a sheet of paper in your head, and split it down the middle. On the left, you have the era of tools, which is the old world, right? Human gated processes, high cost of content production, expensive siloed development, and the value came from labor. Okay. Now, physically turn your head and look at the right side of the page in your brain. The era of agents, which is the new world, agent led autonomous processes, near zero cost content velocity. You can make content almost at $0. Free and open source enterprise tools. You can get access to the same processes and systems that the best companies in the world are getting access to, and they are free and open source. And the value is not in labor, but the value is in strategy. Okay, so the bottom line is margin is now generated by decision making, not execution. That's the whole podcast. That's the whole reason we're doing this podcast, is because it's not about just get out there and grind and just, you need to work hard, obviously, but it's not about it's not about the work. It's about which direction are you going in? It's about decision making. What do you think, Chad?
I think that's the pod.
There we go. Real quick, to put it into practical perspective again, the now what checklist. Okay, I really like this idea. For sure, if you're not watching the pod, I'm gonna put it in the description below where you can like just download this now what checklist. Download that. If you are watching the pod and you still want to download it, it'll be in the description as well. But the now what checklist. Number 1, audit admin. Okay, deploy desktop agents. This is Claude or Chrome immediately to reclaim employee hours currently lost to file management and resource. What does that mean? Give it to one person to download Claude or Chrome and just let it work on their computer. Okay. Once you've done that, then we create a whole, playbook and all this stuff, and we give it to the rest of our employees. This will put you light years ahead. 2, review ad strategy. So prepare for Meta's automated tools. Shift focus from managing ads to designing the creative inputs that the AI will test. That means instead of going in right now and being like, okay, we're going to do a content shoot and we're going to do all this content, and then we're going to have a designer make all these static posts, and we're going to put it all in here and we're going to test it. Instead of doing that, come up with what you would tell your videographer, and you would tell your talent. Exactly. And all that stuff, and what you would tell the designer. Take all that and put it into Manus like now, and have it do all this stuff for you. It'll create your content, it'll test it, create it, test it, create it, test it over and over and over again for thousands of creatives Now you don't even need to like you don't even need to deal with it anymore. It'll literally tell you. I told you this the other day. It'll literally tell you your analytics and data, and from that, you just tell it, okay, cool, thanks. Continue with what you were doing, and then it just continues. It's printing. That's printing money. And honestly, I need to like do a case study on that myself. We'll do it for the pod, dude. We'll do it for the pod. Number three, build versus buy. Reevaluate custom software needs with open source models like DeepSeek. Building internal tools is no longer prohibitively expensive. There's no reason to not have AI in your software suite, right? If you're using any software, you need to be building internal tools because first of all, that's what you should be doing anyway. You should have been doing that anyway. But the excuse was it was too expensive. So now you have the ability to do that. You should be doing that. And I don't necessarily think that
Definitely.
DeepSeek is like the way to do it. Find another open source model if you don't want
Yeah.
the Chinese looking into your
China.
business. It is what it is. But build versus buys. Instead of buying enterprise software, well, DeepSeek is the good one because of what we talked about earlier. You get 4 times the output with only 7% increase. So, number four, creative velocity. Stop paying for basic production. Invest in strategy and ideas. Let the tools handle the rendering and animation. I see this going, like it said earlier, I see this going with two people, sitting in a room talking about strategy and ideas and all the things we need to talk about while this whole conversation is being recorded. And then you take the recording, you put it into
Mhm.
an LLM or an agent, and from there, now you can go put it in and like render and animate whatever you want. Last thing, the window is open, but it won't stay open. The tools that cost enterprise budgets 18 months ago are now free. The moat is gone. So your action item for this podcast is review your workflows this week, identify exactly where you are using AI as a passive tool and where you can deploy it as an active agent. Thank you guys for watching the Pioneers podcast. Me and Chad are moving the expedition forward. We're moving to new ground. We need you guys to bring the people and double the frontier. So make sure you guys share this with at least one person, because if everyone shares with one person, we double in size
We'll
every
double in
single pod.
size every single episode.
And we only need 30 pods to get to over 1 million subscribers. So thank you guys so much. We're basically on track because we're not at 30 yet. We're not at 1 million yet. So thank you guys. If you guys listen to us on Spotify, make sure you guys go leave us a review. I know if you're listening, you're probably family and friends. If this is February 19th, 2026, so it's probably family and friends right now. Make sure you guys go leave us a review. Just do all the things and just boost us. Like the episode. Do all the things. Appreciate you guys. Thank you, Chad, and I will see you guys on the next pod.
Sweet. See ya.